and thank you everybody for taking time out of your day to join us today and talk about experience portals and specifically experience portals for brand management and really big, even global teams. So, Ian gave me an introduction. I'm Parker. I manage our solutions engineering team here at Media Valet, which just means that I deal in all things technical. So I work with a lot of Media Valet customers on overall workflows in and out of the dam. And so naturally, with our new experience portals product, there's a lot more use cases, workflows that open up that involve the dam. So let's talk about brand management with an experience portal. So what we're going to look at today are a few things. So first, I'm going to open by talking about what we recognize as common challenges for brand managers or any kind of brand governance teams when managing a brand, especially across a large audience, global teams, that sort of thing. Then we're actually going to talk about the Experience Portals product and how this can actually solve a lot of these problems by using it as a brand center for this central source of truth on brand. And then finally, we'll actually take a little bit of a look at an example brand center on an experience portal. We'll take a little look at how your assets from the DAM enter into that experience portal as well. And of course, like Ian mentioned, as you have questions, please do give them to us because we will try our best to make time for Q&A as well. So let's get started here. Opening up with what some of the common challenges are for brand management teams today. So this is what we're calling the modern brand challenge. So if you are managing a brand today, that environment can actually be quite fragmented. You can have many different audiences that need to leverage your brand assets. So we can be talking about internal stakeholders, employees, different departments, that sort of thing. We can be talking about external stakeholders. This could be partners, distributors, agencies that need to leverage your brand assets, that sort of thing. Many different audiences. We're also looking at disconnected tools, duplicate assets, outdated content. So if you don't have a central place to manage your brand that's easy to use for all these different audiences, naturally, it's going to get disconnected. Once somebody downloads a logo, they no longer have the single source of truth if that logo gets updated. Maybe they share it out with someone else, and four individuals down the line, someone's got a logo that was outdated 2 years ago, for instance. So we start to see people working in silos. Assets might get duplicated unnecessarily. They're being stored in multiple spots, all this sort of stuff. At the end of the day, every audience, so this could be every region, every agency, every partner, wants autonomy. They want to be able to get brand assets without having to go through a queue, a waiting process, having to double check. They want that autonomy, but without a central brand center or using an experience portal, it's just going to lead to inconsistency. All these problems are going to inevitably arise. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is there's no single source of truth for these audiences to rely on when it comes to your brand assets. So this inevitably leads to what we're calling brand chaos. And so what is ultimately for your organization the cost of brand chaos? Well, I think it can be categorized into two high-level costs. The first one is a reputational cost. So if you have brand assets that are out there in the wild and someone is using something outdated, somebody is using something improperly, maybe they're not following your brand guidelines, at the end of the day, you're going to have a misaligned brand identity out there in the wild. So this erodes trust, it erodes your brand recognition and the very reason that you work hard on having a brand in the first place. So definitely there is a big reputational cost with brand chaos. And then of course, at the end of the day, there's the bottom line. So there is a significant financial cost as well. What can this look like? Well, if you've got different audiences operating in silos, there might be situations where as you produce assets, you are overproducing brand assets because maybe if there was a central spot where teams could see what's available, there might already be assets available for them before they have to go and request from an agency to make new brand assets. And whenever you are going through an asset creation workflow, it's not just the creation of the assets, it's pulling in reviewers for their time to actually review and approve your assets. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of unnecessary labor that you might be able to solve if you have a central spot for all your brand assets. Also, as a brand manager or a brand management team, you might spend unnecessary time policing your brand, even helping people find brand assets. All this manual work could be mitigated with a proper brand center. So let's just look at a couple specific examples of common brand challenges and these kinds of these pain points with brand chaos. So to put three specific examples, hopefully these start to resonate with you. The first one is, say, a regional team, or could be any team, using last year's logo. So there's an audience that is using outdated assets. This could be a regional team that somebody got a logo, but they got it from an email thread that they were CC'd on over a year ago, and the logo's been updated since. Another example is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, agencies recreating already approved content. So maybe the content already existed, but this second audience requested again because they had no idea that the brand content was already there. And the agency just fulfills the request and works through it. And so content is being created again, it's being reviewed again, so on and so forth. Finally, the last example here is marketing managers, or this can be anybody. I think that if you are in brand management, you are familiar with many different audiences asking you, where's the latest version of the asset that I'm looking for? So this is getting into that financial cost of having your brand management team doing unnecessary support work. Maybe you didn't realize that as a brand manager off the side of your desk, you're also internal support for finding all those assets. If you had a brand center on an experience portal, users could self-serve and you could govern what they have access to without having to manually get it for them. So we've talked about the challenges. Now let's shift focus into what experience portals can actually do for you when establishing a brand center or managing your brand. What is an experience portal? Well, to put it shortly here, an experience portal can be thought of as a curated, branded gateway that lets your teams or partners, all the different audiences, access exactly the right content every time. You can think of it like a really impressive on-brand, multi-page website for users to access your brand assets and necessary instructions or brand guidelines on how to use those assets as well. So we will take a look at an example here closer to the end of today's presentation. What's the difference between an experience portal and other brand hubs or brand portals, that sort of thing? Well, unlike giving access to shared folders for audiences or other portals, there's a few key features that I want to call out for experience portals when you're managing your brand. So first of all, the custom branding and layout that you can add to your experience portal is very cohesive. It's an on-brand experience, and you can really get down to the nitty-gritty of what your brand is and represent that on that site. It'll be smooth, it'll be professional, and it can suit many different audiences. Very importantly, you will have governance and visibility controls. So you can have pages in your experience portal that are public, but you can have pages that are private, and not just private, but restricted to certain groups of users. So this means that you can have pages, collections of pages, menu items in your main navigation where a user needs to authenticate, and they'll be part of an authorized group to determine which pages they see. You have full control over that, and it becomes autonomous. Once you set it up once, it guides the user into what kind of brand assets are available to them. So you don't have to keep manually giving stuff to people. Also, role-based access. You can have certain roles. So you can have users who are admins, end users, or even editors in between if you want them you have maybe internal teams where you want them to help you a little bit with creating content, but they don't have full admin control, all that sort of stuff. Also, media valet templating. You can actually start the template process from the experience portal if you wish. And so that might be a way to offer some content that users can actually modify, but again, within all of the restrictions or guidance that you set for them. So we'll take a little look at that too. And I think the last thing I'll mention is that you don't need any coding or technical experience to create an experience portal or to create the pages on it. We'll take a look at how we can modify a page and how that's a very simple thing to do. So, okay, I think it's time for a quick poll, a quick pulse check here. Thank you, Ian, for running that up here. So the question here, I want to get a sense of how everyone's feeling in the audience. Who would benefit most from a curated portal in your organization? Would it be your marketing teams? Would it be external teams like agencies and partners? Do you have regional or franchisee teams, maybe based on location? Or would it be everybody? So if you can just take a moment here, we will run this poll and then look at the results. I think I get to pick two. I'm seeing it in front of me, so I'm going to pick answer two. No, I can't vote. That's what it tells me at the bottom. I would say everybody for the record. Oh, and looks like most people agree with me. That's great. All right. So yeah, I think no shocker that there are many different, your experience is probably with many different types of teams that could access your brand assets. So makes sense that most of us agree everybody could benefit. Thanks everyone for filling that out. Okay, let's look at a couple more slides here, talk a little bit more about experience portals, audiences, and then I'm going to hop into an example. So, okay. So who can a brand center impact? So we're talking about setting up an experience portal as a brand center for this brand management scenario. Well, we just found out that everybody is a good answer to that, which I very much agree. But let's focus on how you as a brand manager or your brand management team would actually be impacted by having a brand center, a centralized source for your brand assets. So those key benefits for a brand manager would include maintaining control of your brand assets without bottlenecks. So approved assets would automatically flow from your Media Valet DAM to the experience portal and ultimately to those designated users. So the DAM is still your single source of truth. If an asset gets updated, if it gets rejected, it expires, all of those actions flow naturally into the experience portal. So you don't have to worry about if an asset expires in the DAM, then you have to go and perform some kind of manual admin action to make sure that it's not in the experience portal. This is all automatic. You've got that control from the source. Also, probably one of the biggest things is that you're going to reduce off-brand usage. So you've got a single source of truth of assets in the DAM. As you update them, like I mentioned, those updates are going to automatically flow into the brand center for those audiences. So anytime someone needs to grab a logo for a project, they need to grab some approved photography, fonts, whatever it may be, rest assured at that moment when they go to the brand center, they're going to have the latest asset because it will always be updated in the DAM. And not only will they have the assets, but in the experience portal, because it's a multi-page website, you can have your brand guidelines, any instructions, any best practices right there next to your assets. So when someone's about to grab a logo, you're going to tell them how they ought to use it, which will also help reduce that off-brand usage. And then finally, you're empowering your teams and partners to move faster. This is a self-serve opportunity for them. They authenticate into your brand center because of whatever group of users they're a part of, whatever audience they are. They're going to see all the assets or pages that you've set up for them, and they can go through this simple, aesthetic, curated website to find exactly what they need. So how that impacts you is you don't need to be asked to fetch assets for them. Okay, so just a couple slides left before we look at an example here. So you might be wondering by this point, how should I actually structure a brand center if I have a ton of audiences? I've got a global audience, many different kinds. The short answer here is that there is no one size fits all approach. And we can really work with you to understand your audiences and then make recommendations on what's going to be best. And you could organize your brand center by function. So you could have certain teams, and then those are your audiences that you're allocating pages and assets to. You could also facilitate certain campaigns. So maybe you have a particular product launch, you've got some brand assets around that product launch, and many different audiences need access to it. You can do that as well. Or even if we're talking something regional, you can have those regional audiences. At the end of the day, you set up those users into audience groups in your experience portal, and a user can be in more than one audience group. So you can start to blend specific users into what they need. And then when you create pages, you can give those pages to different groups as well. So it's very customizable is the short story. Okay, let's take a quick look at an example of a company here that is using a brand center for multiple purposes. So Acme Corp. Acme Corp is a global corporation that actually is running 4 functions outside of their or from within their experience portal as a brand center. So first and foremost, they've got their corporate brand hub. Imagine that this is for your internal brand governance. So anybody in your internal team, your corporate team, different departments, you can have your brand governance and all the brand assets that they can access. You give those to those teams, one or more teams. Then you have a partner portal. So these would be focused on if a distributor, maybe an agency, is going to also authenticate in, but be part of a different group, and you want to give them different assets for different purposes and different instructions around them. You can do all that too. Campaign portal. So this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. Maybe this is more timely. You have certain product launches, initiatives that are temporal. You could actually set up asset kits, campaign kits around them, and then distribute them to corporate audiences, partner audiences, whoever you need. And finally, let's also talk about public pages. So we've been talking a lot about authenticated users accessing assets, but another thing that comes up for a lot of brand managers is dealing with the public. So maybe you need like a press kit type website where they're public pages. You don't need users to authenticate. This is public media kits, press kits, and these are just public pages. You could do all that too, and then just direct any of the relevant audience to those public pages without even worrying about having them as users. So many different things that you can do. At the end of the day, I think that when you are putting one of these together, you can focus first on the 80-20 rule. What are those 20% of assets that get used 80% of the time? Get them on there. And then you can customize further and further from there based on your audiences and your use cases. Not just assets, but also templates as well, which we mentioned. So now what I'm going to do is actually show you a quick example here. So now what we're looking at here is an example of an experience portal. This is like saying we're looking at a Media Valet brand center. It's a multi-page website. Here's our home page. We've got different sections, call to actions. This is all fully customizable, no code. We've got a menu at the top with drop downs, so users can actually make their way to specific pages like this. And really, however you want to structure this is up to you. So in this example, we've got a homepage. It starts to talk about the story behind the brand. What's our mission? And then you could actually hop into different elements of the brand. So if I wanted to take a look at our logos, I could go to the logo section here. And then I'm going to have call to actions if I want to download specific logos throughout. But I've also got that explainer, so I can compare our color to our white logo lockup, for instance, logo icon. And again, this is all just block by block. I've built this, making the choices for how I want this to show up. This is not a template that you have to follow. It's up to you, and we give you the building blocks to design this however you want. Now, let's take a look here at a specific page because I want to show you what it looks like to actually have your assets flow from Media Valet into the experience portal. So if we go under our brand guidelines, we're going to look at photography for the Media Valet brand. So we've got another option here for the hero section at the top. And then as we go through, it's starting to describe the different types of photography. We've got people photography. This is typically what it's all about. It celebrates real humans with natural expressions, natural light, so on and so forth. We leverage object photography, solid color backgrounds, again, natural light. We're explaining how this all works. Now, the way I've set it up here as an example is, let's say that someone wants to use some of our approved people photography. So I've set up a call to action button to download photos, and then this is going to take me now to a section of assets that a user can now download. So here we're looking at approved people photography, and I could actually access this. So these are actual assets that are in my Media Valet DAM available to the user in the experience portal. Let's take a quick look at how these pages are made, and then I'll show you those assets in the DAM, and then we can move on to a Q&A here. So basically, you'll notice that I'm a logged in user. I've got my little name up here at the top, and I happen to be an admin, but of course, end users won't see an admin section. As soon as I hop into my admin experience, it's going to look like this. I've got my admin bar up here at the top. That's how I know. And then I can go into a page like this, and basically, this is me previewing it. I can hit this button at the top, and now I'm suddenly editing, and it's all intuitive. No code. If I want to edit text, I click on the text, and I edit the text. My style options show up here on the right. I can swap out images, and I can even add new sections as I go and drag and drop whatever elements I want in. No code is required, and once you spend a little bit of time getting used to the sections, the styling, you should be off to the races working at the speed of thought. Okay, so now I just want to show you here quickly. I'm going to go to this asset section here. I'm not going to save any changes to this demo page. But what I'm seeing in my experience portal, these are my Media Valet categories that are showing up from the DAM. So these essentially show up here. And then when I place that section on the page, like we looked at, I'm basically placing the Media Valet category. And then that syncs over. So, and from this experience here, you can get right into your Media Valet DAM by clicking a button up here at the top right. And now if I want to actually manage any of these assets, I'm in the DAM where I have that single source of truth. So the last thing I'll just quickly show you here is how this funnels in. So this category in my DAM is the category that is being used on this page. So if something changes in the DAM, it's going to automatically reflect here. You'll see that right now we've got 9 photographs in this section that the user in the experience portal sees. Let's say in the DAM that we went through a process and one of these, we've decided to reject one of these assets. As soon as I reject that there, I'm just going to refresh this page. And then you'll see that now instantaneously we have 8 assets available. So that change takes place all the way to the end. If I used this through multiple pages on my experience portal, they'd all update in an instant, and there isn't any more manual work required from me. Okay, I want to leave a couple minutes here for Q&A. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for your time, and let's run a Q&A with any questions that come up. Okay, just going through the chat. Do you want me to just start going through these, Ian, as I'm reading them, or what's the best?
Yeah, that'd be great, Parker.
Okay, perfect. So let's see. Are there ways to adjust CSS styling to better suit our brand? Great question. So actually, the short answer here is when we set up your experience portal, we'll essentially preload your brand. So we have a very sophisticated tokening system that can take your brand guidelines. So say your colors, your fonts, the spacing between paragraphs can get very detailed. And then we cascade all these tokens down ultimately into the components available. So the short answer there is there's not a CSS element inside of the portal itself, but you can define those guardrails for the users in the portal. So they can only select from your brand colors. They can only select from your approved like header, body, font styles, button styles. So that is configurable, but it's done in advance so that it doesn't have to be done by the user creating each page. Okay, and then the next question here. Are there any pre-designed templates available in Media Valet for us to start with? Great question. Yeah, there is. There are page templates available for you to start with. There's a variety of them, and yeah, that you can use as best practices. Also, when you create a page, you can duplicate it with the click of a button. So once you start to create your own templates, you could have those saved as draft pages and then just duplicate them if you use the same type of page over again, and especially for like a different audience where you just change a few things. Okay, gonna try to just kind of move through these to try to answer as many as I can. Is this portal experience different from the current portal option, or is this a new feature that's coming? Great question. So yeah, this is different. So we currently have brand portals, and then this is a new product experience portals. The short story on the difference here is that a brand portal is a single page, and the customization options are very limited. You can have a banner and a logo, and then you just have sections of assets. You don't have any of the like website pages. It's not a multi-page portal. You're not creating something really aesthetic and curated to your brand, and you don't have any logged in users in that brand portal. So the experience portal just becomes a much more sophisticated, customizable experience to eliminate all these different pain points that we talked about today. Whereas brand portals, you can create a quick external facing page of assets to share with anonymous users. Are we able to create personalized logins for external partners? Absolutely. So on a group by group basis, so for each audience, you can actually customize the homepage. So as soon as that external partner logs in, you can have a homepage for that one external partner group, a different one for another one. And then all the other pages that you make accessible to them is also customizable. But as soon as they log in, it can be a custom experience. Okay, and then I saw another one here. For a business that represents multiple brands, would you create multiple experience portals or simply have pages for each brand? That is a very good question. And it usually, I like to do a little bit of discovery in general before I recommend one direction or the other. At the end of the day, if kind of the header and the logo at the top is going to be one brand and then the content on each page is going to change, then I think one portal might make sense. But if you want to entirely white label the whole thing, and you don't want any semblance of the theme or style from brand to brand, then that's when we might start talking about multiple experience portals. Is there reporting available? Yes, yes, there is. This is something that we are just working on right now, finalizing. So yeah, it is going to be based around engagement of assets and who those audience members are. That's what I can say at this time, and we'll be able to have more details shortly on like specific metrics and whatnot. Okay, I think I got them all. I'm just looking. Oh, I saw one more. For experience portals pricing, is it based on each experience portal, or is the price independent of the number of portals? Yeah, it's going to be based on active audience members, essentially. Okay, I think that is everything.
Yeah, I think that's the more perfect.
Okay, well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. This webinar is recorded, so if you do want to share it out with anyone else, please feel free. And then, like Ian mentioned, we've got another Another session here for Dam Week. I think straight after this one, Ian, is that right? Or shortly?
Yeah, in about 25 minutes, we have a session with Steve Outerbridge and Nick Hatch from Mark around how teams move fast without losing control, and basically about around DAM and templating. So it should be a great session.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
folks. Bye bye.